ever wish your day wasn't dictated by your health? Are you tired of being tired all the time, or is pain holding you back from enjoying your time with your family? Would you like to manage your symptoms holistically, but you just don't know where to begin? I am so excited that you're here. This podcast will help you understand how natural remedies work so you can relieve your symptoms and live a fuller life. My name is Penny. I'm an occupational therapist, past pharmaceutical rep, a mom, and a wife with a strong faith, and for 25 years, I battled through debilitating Crohn's disease. I took all the medicine and did all the surgeries that stole so much time with my family, but never truly healed me. I finally realized if I was going to survive this disease, I needed to open my stubborn eyes to alternative solutions. I researched how perfectly our bodies work with plants and a lifestyle that made my health less of a burden to my family and aligned so beautifully with my faith and my medical training. If you're ready to reclaim your life with holistic options that are easy to implement as a busy mom and provide relief that lasts, this is the podcast for you. After workouts, I reached for red light therapy. I chose Lumbox because it's compact and portable with medical-grade red and near-infrared LEDs, studied for supporting the body's inflammatory response and exercise-related discomfort. Sessions are quick, 6 and 12-minute timers, and it's non-invasive and easy to use at home or on the go. Save $260, over 58% off at becomingnatural.com/redlight. Hello, Becoming Natural fans. How are you this week? This is Penny, your host of Becoming Natural. Welcome to episode 66, L-Theanine Benefits, Powerful Calm for Every Restless Brain. I am so excited about today's episode. I feel that I hear more and more people talking about having anxiousness or a brain that doesn't shut down or a mind that doesn't rest when they go to sleep at night or kids with anxious feelings. And I just feel like this really resonates with a lot of people. And I was so excited to share what I've learned. We're going to be talking about when the body's tired, but the mind won't rest. Have you ever reached the end of a day feeling physically tired, only to notice that your mind is still moving at full speed? Your body may be asking for rest, but your thoughts continue. Organizing tomorrow, replaying conversations, solving problems that certainly don't need solving at midnight or 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, and scanning for what might go wrong next. If you know, you know. I have certainly been there. It's an uncomfortable place to live. You're not energized, you're exhausted, but you're not restored. You can't restore yourself when your mind is constantly going. And many people describe it as just feeling on all the time, even when there's no obvious reason that you should be. I remember my husband asking me when we were first married, we were on a long drive through Oklahoma, and it was just wide open country, what I was thinking. And I was staring out the window in a daze, and all of a sudden I just kind of snapped out, and I was like, nothing. I wasn't thinking about anything. And he said, there's no way you weren't thinking about anything. It's not possible. You have to be thinking about something. And I just laughed because, I mean, I see what he's saying, but at the same time, I really wasn't thinking about anything. I was just kind of in a zone. So his brain never, ever shuts off. He cannot relate to that at all. So there's no rest inside of his brain. And I hear this often for a lot of people. So he's always thinking, always questioning, always wondering. And then words will pop out that have nothing to do with either what we were talking about or we're not even talking at all. And then all of a sudden he starts talking and he's carrying on the conversation that he was having in his head. And all of a sudden he was like, oh yeah, and da 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 da. And I'm like, where did that come from? Some people just keep going, not necessarily because you feel strong, but because slowing down doesn't automatically bring relief. And for some, that stillness even feels unfamiliar, almost like the nervous system has forgotten how to settle. And that's exactly what has happened. Our nervous systems are not being trained to settle down and to settle in. This is not a character flaw, and it is not a failure of discipline. If you have children, especially if you're observing this in one or more of your children, more often it reflects a nervous system that has practiced being alert for so long that it begins to treat this vigilance as its default setting. I'm going to emphasize that again because your brain has been alert for so long. Think fight or flight. It has learned to treat your on switch as your default setting. Does that sound familiar to you or to someone that you love or live with? So our modern life has quietly trained us in this direction. We are rewarded for pushing through fatigue. pain or sickness and praised for productivity and often conditioned to override our body's early signals of warning in order to meet that moment. Yet our body keeps track of those signals even when we don't. So over time, adaptation shows up as racing thoughts, light sleep, muscle tension, irritability, brain fog, or that steady undercurrent of overwhelm that hums beneath otherwise normal days. While being able to think about nothing, for myself, at times I can get in that zone, but that undercurrent of overwhelm on a daily basis resonates big time with me. Before we go further today, I want to address that our kids are feeling this too. And I've heard this over and over again when I talk to people about anxious feelings with their children and helping them figure out how to move forward with that. But they don't know how to articulate what anxiousness feels like, especially when they're little. There's so many kiddos that are having focus issues or anxious feelings, or they're taking too large of a dose of something for that focus issue, and it's causing this anxious, wired feeling. But those poor little guys, they can't articulate what anxious feelings feel like when their hearts are racing, and it's incredibly, incredibly uncomfortable. So we have to be aware so that we can help our kids articulate these feelings, because many adults may not know how that feels. Research tells us that nearly 1 in 3 adolescents will deal with an anxiety disorder at some point. About 1 in 8 children are already struggling with anxiety right now. Those numbers have been steadily on the rise for at least a decade. So there's a guy. Many of you have probably read this book, but he's a social psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, and he wrote a popular book called The Anxious Generation, where he talks about there's been a major shift happening in childhood, shaped by constant digital connection, growing pressures among our kiddos, and a pace of life that young nervous systems were never meant to carry. It's too fast. There's too much. There's too much stimulation. There's too much incoming information. But honestly, most parents don't need research, obviously, to tell them this is happening. We see it. And if we're honest with ourselves, we at times feel it in our own lives. We see it in our kids who feel pressure to be perfect, and sleep that doesn't come easily, kids who fall asleep with their phone in their face, and the quiet worries they sometimes don't have words for yet. This isn't about blaming phones or wishing we could go back in time. It is about understanding the world that our children are living in so we can meet them where they are with steadiness, wisdom, and compassion. Because when we understand what's shaping their nervous systems, we become better equipped to care for our own and to model what calm can look like. And that really matters because regulated parents help raise regulated kiddos. The remarkable thing is that the nervous system is not broken, actually, in moments like this. It is actually trying to protect you. The challenge is that what once served as protection can eventually become exhaustion. So today we're going to talk about something called L-Theanine. I'll spell that for you. Capital L-Theanine. It's an amino acid that has drawn increasing scientific interest because of its ability to support calm, focused awareness without any sort of sedating effect like common meds do for anxious feelings. It isn't a shortcut, and it isn't a personality change in capsule form. I hear that a lot about kiddos not wanting to take their medicine because it feels like it dulls them or changes their personality. Instead, this is a better understood as gentle support that helps the brain shift towards regulation. I feel like it's like downshifting in a stick shift car towards a state where you can actually think clearly without feeling wound up tight inside. So while I know I'm passionate about uncovering natural ways to treat our bodies, and just as passionate when I find things we have been told are safe that aren't really, my husband is generally on my wagon. But also he doesn't climb on all of the wagons, I should say, which is why I was so proud of him because he introduced me to L-Theanine. I had no idea that he was taking it, and I have heard about its benefits, but I had not yet taken a deep dive into understanding it and studying it. But with so many kids and adults, because I include myself in that crew living with anxiety and stress, I've shared L-Theanine with several family members and friends, and I've received only positive feedback, big time positive feedback. And one of those special people had debilitating anxiousness resulting in constant stomach pain. However, after a long time with stomach pain, they had never connected that stomach pain and nausea that kept them home from their job and their activities was connected to their racing thoughts of fear and worry. So when we chatted about it, I suggested that perhaps it might be more of an anxious feeling. And they told me later that they did take half of a pill of a family member's medication for anxiousness, and the stomach pain that they had curled up in a ball in bed disappeared in 10 minutes. Wow. While I never wanted my friend to walk through anxiety of any kind, I was thrilled that we determined the root of the digestive issues, that she was, by the way, prescribed a prescription of acid-reducing medication that will ultimately never solve the problem because that was not the root problem, that her digestive issues were not acid-related at all, but it was rooted in anxiety. The brain is the gut and the gut is the brain, my friends. We hear this more and more, but she also didn't want to take a prescription for her anxiety. So I suggested, hey, you should try L-Theanine because my husband said it really helped him calm his brain and his racing thoughts and helped him focus without any negative side effects. A week later, she told me that not only did she feel better, but she wasn't incapable of getting one leg out of the bed in the morning like usual. For the first time in a long time, she got up, she went to the gym before work, and she felt amazing. I absolutely love hearing these stories, especially from people that I know and love. And I've heard this consistently from people that I've suggested they should take it. So when we learn how the body is designed to function, we can respond with wisdom rather than this pressure or taking something that is not biological for our body to take in and to work well together, that doesn't have the side effects of something that is not naturally made. So often that understanding alone begins to soften the nervous system. And we know we need to soften that constantly stimulated nervous system we have. I like the term softening it. We just need to turn it down a notch when we're always going. So what is L-Theanine? L-Theanine is a naturally occurring amino acid most commonly associated with green tea leaves, though it is now widely available as its own supplement. Don't we hear all the time about how green tea is soothing? Well, L-Theanine plays a huge role in that aspect of green tea. We hear amino acids all the time, but in general, they serve as the building blocks within the body that help construct proteins, regulate our metabolism, and help with communication between our cells, including our brain cells. What makes L-Theanine particularly fascinating is its relationship with the brain. It is actually able to cross the blood-brain barrier, and we've discussed this before, in that we get warnings for drugs not to take while we're pregnant because they could pass the blood-brain barrier and it could potentially cross into the brain of a baby in a mother's womb. We also know that we can act on issues related to our brain, like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or seizures, if we have a way or a method to pass the blood-brain barrier. So many things don't, because it is a very highly selective membrane that is put in place to protect our brain from unwanted substances circulating in the blood. So when a compound does cross this barrier, research pay attention because it suggests the substance may directly influence neurological activity or our brain function, and that is good or bad. But rather than ramping up brain cells aggressively or slowing them down like many of our meds do that our children are prescribed, L-Theanine appears to influence the pattern of brain signaling. Many people struggle to name the feeling at first because it does not resemble this sharp lift of a stimulant or the feeling of a sedative that's just dulling you. Instead, it's often described as a quieting, a sense that the mental volume that has been turned down just enough to allow a clear thought. People are reporting that they say things like, I feel calmer but still alert. My thoughts seem more organized. I'm able to focus without that internal pressure. This distinction is really important because most of us are not lacking stimulation at all. If anything, we're surrounded by it with our brain racing and a million things on our to-do list to do with more and more on our plates these days. But what the brain often needs is support in shifting from that reactivity toward regulation. It's funny enough because as I was writing this, we have a new puppy. He's 14 weeks old, and we were discussing how he's always on. And when he's on and when he gets tired, he's like a toddler. He uses his teeth a lot, and we say he gets bitey. He doesn't bite us, but he's got little sharp teeth and he gnaws on us. And we've found that actually means that he is overtired. So we did some research, and The research told us that our, quote, puppy has a nervous system without brakes. And I loved the way that that was characterized. And he needs to be forced to self regulate. So you teach a puppy to force self regulate or to downgrade that nervous system by creating a sleep schedule, requiring rest time to teach him how to settle himself, how to be still, and how to rest. And I kid you not that we were in day 4 of this strict schedule, and he is a totally different puppy. He just was wired and on all the time. His body was going and he needed rest, but he didn't know how to do it. And we are exactly the same way. Just like I said, it's like having a baby. We know that when kids are throwing a fit and start crying, it's time for a nap. It's nap time. He's still learning, but his nervous system, our puppy, is getting the attention that it needs to calm. Just like he is not acting out via biting as much. It's remarkable, really, the difference that we've seen in just a couple of days by giving him those boundaries and that parameter. I actually thought maybe I should stick some L-Theanine in his food. Totally kidding. I don't know if it's good for dogs or not, so don't do that. So why does L-Theanine work? So to understand why L-Theanine can feel so different from many stress-supported supplements, it helps to look briefly at how our brain actually communicates. I don't want to get too deep here, so hang with me. But number one, the L-Theanine acts on our alpha brainwaves, the state of calm attention. So your brain operates through electrical rhythms, we know this, commonly called brainwaves. And one of these patterns is called the alpha state, which researchers associate with your relaxed alertness. Some people call that prayer time or just your slow down time as the mental space where you're attentive, but you're not strained. Alpha activity tends to appear, just like I said, when you're reflecting, when you're learning, when you're creating, when you're praying, or just being present without this sense of urgency to get anything done. It is not the absence of thought. It is thought without turbulence, I'll say. Multiple studies have shown that L-Theanine increases alpha wave activity, particularly in regions of the brain tied to attention and emotional regulation. And this may help explain why many individuals report feeling both calm, but also mentally clear, rather than that drowsy that you feel if you were to take an anti-anxious medication. So a helpful way to picture this is to imagine a room where several conversations are happening at once, but L-Theanine does not silence the room. It simply lowers the background noise so you can hear what actually matters. Kind of like people have hearing aids and they can tune out the rest of the room. I've always thought that was really cool and I would love to do that. So those alpha waves help you to focus on what you want to focus on and keep that background noise from affecting you. It's still there and you still hear it, but you're not being distracted and pulled by it. Number 2, L-Theanine supports your neurotransmitter balance. So the brain relies on chemical messengers known as neurotransmitters to coordinate our mood and our focus and our stress response. But L-Theanine has been observed to influence several of these, including, we've heard of GABA before, which helps quiet excessive neural firing. It also affects serotonin, which is often associated with emotional steadiness. It affects dopamine, involved in motivation and attention. So rather than flooding the brain with these chemicals like many of our medications do, they just flood the brain and there's not a lot of control. L-Theanine appears to support a more balanced environment in which they can function effectively. So think less in terms of forcing a change and more in terms of improving the communication within the cells. So for people who are sensitive to strong, decisive interventions, this is a gentle way to help modulate from the inside, and you can feel a gentle yet noticeably different calm in your life. And third, finally, it supports the stress hormones and the body's alarm system. So when the brain perceives threat, whether it's physical or psychological, it signals the release of stress hormones such as cortisol, adrenaline. We've all heard those words before. In short bursts, this response is protective and necessary. That's how we take care of our body. That's that fight or flight. The difficulty arises when that stress becomes chronic, whether you have a high-stress job or whether you have stress going on at home, or you're just a natural person who tends to lean towards being stressed. That chronic firing will not allow that alarm to turn off. So, research suggests that L-theanine may help reduce stress while supporting activity within the part of the nervous system responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery. People often describe that experience not as indifference, but it gives you more perspective. The stressor is still there, it's still visible, you're still dealing with it, but it doesn't dominate your entire internal landscape with ruminating thoughts or overreactions. You're allowed to respond, but it's, I would say, less like a knee jerk reaction. The shift is what regulation feels like. And for those who haven't experienced regulation well, and maybe not their entire life, it's mind blowing. And just a little scientific sidebar, people who never drink tea have often heard it described as promoting a calmer form of alertness. This is not accidental. Tea naturally contains both caffeine and L-theanine. And I'm referring to green tea, by the way, not any tea. And researchers believe the presence of L-theanine helps smooth that stimulating effect of the caffeine. So you get both advantages. What matters most is that L-theanine does not require caffeine to work. Its regulatory properties can stand on their own to affect you. So who might benefit from L-theanine if you don't already have your hand in the air? Our bodies tend to communicate long before they reach a breaking point. Signals such as tight shoulders, shallow breathing, difficulty concentrating, or a mind that refuses to disengage are not signs of weakness. They are our body telling us to pay attention. So those living with ongoing stress or anxiety. So for people whose thoughts tend to loop or whose bodies carry persistent tension, the ability to soften that mental reactivity can feel like complete spaciousness returning to the brain. People who have high responsibility personalities, such as caregivers, someone who's caring for their parents, or healthcare professionals, leaders, people who carry a significant responsibility because they have become exceptionally skilled at staying composed externally while managing constant internal stress on the inside. So over time, that sustained output taxes the nervous system immensely. So support that encourages regulation may help them restore their cognitive flexibility, making it easier to respond thoughtfully rather than reflexively, i.e. that knee-jerk thing. Respond nicely as opposed to yelling. It's amazing how you still have the stressors, you still have the things that impact you, but you don't respond out of frustration or speed. You actually respond thoughtfully. It's really quite amazing. Finally, individuals who struggle to transition into rest or sleep. So some bodies power down naturally at night. Others require a much longer runway to sleep. If fatigue is present, but the mind continues scanning, planning, rehearsing, thinking of all the things, L-theanine may assist the brain in downshifting those states more gradually and gracefully, not by forcing sleep. It's not going to knock you out. You're not going to have that feeling, but it's going to gradually help you drift down and downshift. It's going to reduce that mental friction that prevents you from settling into sleep. So how should you take L-theanine safely? Most research places typical adult intake between 100 and 200 milligrams, taken once or twice daily. The brand that we have is a 200 milligram pill. So some people prefer taking it in the morning for calm, focus, and motivation. Like I said, my friend who got herself out of bed and wasn't used to being able to bound out of bed. While others might like taking it in the evening because it prepares them for rest. You can take it morning and night. It's probably something that you need to try just to take and see what works for you. So it can be taken with or without food, but if you tend to have a sensitive stomach, I always tell people to take something new with a meal. The goal is not to chase this dramatic sensation. And I think so many people forget this. If you're used to taking something that makes you go to sleep or makes you more alert or focused, you feel when the meds, quote, hit you. So we're not chasing that feeling. That feeling is not going to occur. It's going to be that absence of feeling that irritability or feeling wound tight. Often the most supportive shifts in our body are very subtle. A steadier mood, clearer thinking, or an easier time recovering or managing your stress. Start low, remain attentive, and allow your body's feedback to guide your adjustments. So I would start with the 100 milligrams, or if you have a 200 milligram pill, you can either open it up and take half, or you can just take one in the morning or one at night, depending upon what your need is. Always the question of how do you choose a quality product? As always, not all supplements are manufactured with equal care, which makes finding a safe and clean product important. You can't just run down to the store and buy whatever's on the shelf. To tell people this all the time, and it's so discouraging, but as everybody knows, this supplement industry is not regulated at all, so you have no idea really what's in your pill. You need to look for brands that provide third-party testing. That means that that a third party that is outside of the company tests the product and it confirms what is listed on the label matches what is inside of the bottle and that there are no contaminants. Certifications, you can look for certifications on the bottles like NSF or USP or GMP. I know these are a lot of letters, good manufacturing process. Those offer additional reassurances because it means it's been through some sort of a regulatory agency. But focus on brands with a straightforward ingredient list. So when labels become crowded with all these, proprietary blend or all these different things, it becomes difficult to know what you're truly receiving. Simple is best. And be consistent. Consistency counts. So if you have situations that need extra caution, so what are your warnings whenever you might take L-Theanine? It is widely regarded as well tolerated. Thoughtful use matters, of course, recognizing how it's affecting you when you're taking it. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, always talk to your doctor. Occasionally, people have reported side effects, including a mild headache or lightheadedness or feeling more relaxed than intended. Those are all signaling to reassessing your dosing. So caring well for the body includes asking good questions and then honoring the responses that your body has when you take it. Psalm 46 invites us, be still and know that I am God. One of my favorite scriptures when I get a little bit frazzled. Stillness is sometimes misunderstood as inactivity, when in reality, it just reflects alignment, a settling of internal noise that allows us to perceive what is going on around us and what is true. So supporting the nervous system is not separate from your spiritual life. When the body feels safe, it often becomes easier to listen, to pray, to notice guidance that our chronic sense of urgency often drowns out. L-Theanine does not create peace, but it may simply help clear the space where peace can be received. We still might have to do some work of controlling our external stressors. We all do, if there are any. But this L-Theanine helps to create that space inside of our body so that we can receive those stressors better. The body is so intricately designed, capable of remarkable adaptation and restoration. So it does not matter how far you've gone and how stressed you are or what medications you've taken. Our bodies are created to heal and to restore themselves. Paying attention to that design is one quiet way we can practice gratitude. Gratitude for an incredibly resilient body, for all the abuse that we give it with our food ingredients, with harmful chemicals, with neglect. So if your body has been signaling the need for a slower internal pace, you might consider whether gentle supplemental support might be helpful. L-Theanine is not the only path towards regulation, but for many it becomes one helpful piece of a broader rhythm that includes rest and boundaries and nourishing relationships or prioritizing your own moments of stillness. We are a big, complicated puzzle when it comes down to it, and we are overstimulated. So peace rarely arrives through force. More often, it is cultivated. It's learning, it's being intentional, it's gradual, and we have to be patient as we learn to work with the body rather than working against it. And sometimes the smallest adjustments create the space for the deepest exhale, and that exhale could be the breath of new life. If something in today's conversation spoke to your heart, consider sharing it with someone who may need to hear that same encouragement. And if this podcast has been a steady voice in your week, leaving a rating or review is one of the kindest ways that you can help it reach more women. Thank you so much for being here this week, for spending part of your day with me, and for taking small, faithful steps towards living well. Keep becoming one step at a time. See you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit that follow button, leave a 5-star review if you're so willing, and help spread the message of Becoming Natural by sharing it with a friend. Check out the resources in the show notes and join the email list to stay on top of all the latest and greatest happenings at Becoming Natural as we roll out exciting new things while we grow. Until next time, take those baby steps to a more natural life and always Give yourself grace. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. See you next week. If my story resonated with you, I invite you to read more stories from women who have wrestled with their identity and found they are more than their struggles. More Than Enough brings those voices together, including my chapter, My and Testimony, a chapter 25 years in the making. They make great gifts for any woman in your life that needs some encouraging words. You can grab an autographed copy at becomingnatural.com/books, BOOKS.